Coming up on today's episode of DLLS Mavs, what's the biggest concerns for your Mavericks going into this season? Plus, we dial up the Stein line as Marc Stein drops his news and notes on your Dallas Mavericks. All that and more on today's episode of DLLS Mavs. Here we go. Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks insider Tim Cato, Mavericks analyst Bobby Carella. We are DLLS Mavs, your favorite guys covering your favorite team every single day. Make sure you find us on X at Kevin Gray Sports, at Tim_Cato, at Bobby Carella, and at 2:45 today, we dial up the Stein line with our guy, Marc Stein, as he drops his news and notes on your Dallas Mavericks. You can follow us on YouTube at DLLS Sports. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to DLLS Sports on YouTube on this terrific Thursday, gentlemen, as we are just days away from training camp media day on Monday. Feels like basketball is in the air, gentlemen. How we doing on this Thursday?
Doing fantastic. Oh, what's this little bit that Bobby's got going?
Are you doing some ASMR stuff on the air right now? What are you doing right now? Relax, man. Jeez.
I don't know. You tell us.
Clearly, are you feeling good over there?
What is this green thing we got going? Hey, let's switch. Oh, damn. We don't have the
Tanner and I got the blue shirt memo. We don't got the green shirt memo. Apparently,
we don't have the third camera to do just a green shot. We only in the big studio, in the other studio, we've got two separate the lounge. We've got one camera going this way and one camera going this way, and here we only got the one host. And clearly we need a sponsor from LaCroix, because the way that
I'm begging. The way that you've been crushing those as of late.
Honestly,
I'm a little concerned for you.
I might prefer if it's bubbly. Is that heresy?
I don't. I think that any company that would like to sponsor our show is welcome here. It doesn't matter the brand,
right?
Kevin,
but that any company should be bubbly.
I want to give a quick shout out to the Oakland Coliseum.
Oh, really?
The Rangers
final
and
game
A's
today.
They're closing shop up today, and Jared Sandler just shared a video from Eric Nadel of Barry Zito singing the anthem prior to today's game. Of course, longtime MLB pitcher Barry Zito and the favorite player of one of my best friends from my college days, Jose Cruz. So, Jose, if you're out there watching this, our guy made it to the big stage. Barry Zito, he's singing the anthem.
Barry Zito's 12-6 curveball was one of the most devastating curveballs I've ever seen from
great
a pitcher.
Pitcher and seemingly a great guy.
Yeah, those
great singer. Did you listen?
I don't know. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to give a shout out to Nafisa Collier last night, because the Minnesota Lynx advanced to the WNBA semifinals. Nafisa dropped 42 last night in their win to move on to the WNBA semifinals. They'll be taking on Connecticut for the right to face either the Aces or the Liberty in the WNBA finals. So Nafisa Collier making history last night.
Well, I feel like I should have a shout out, but I don't.
Well, I want to shout out Joe in the chat, too, who also says, before you guys get started, I have an important question for Bobby. Joe, fire off the comment.
What is the question? We want to know.
Fire off that comment.
There's BC, the Lakers guy, showing up in the chat once again. He likes to hop in.
The Lakers, LeBron. How do I get on your Pokemon Go friends list? Ooh, I'll type my friend code in the chat. Give me a second.
Oh, Lord.
While he does that, what are your biggest concerns for the Mavericks this upcoming season as the Mavericks get ready for their new season?
The friend code is only available.
These guys aren't paying
attention
to anything that's going on over here. This is the kind of show we're doing today.
Paywall friendship.
Are you guys?
Okay, we're back now.
You're back?
Yeah.
Are we back?
Yeah.
You guys can tell me, since they're not here, you can tell me what your biggest concerns are for the Mavericks this upcoming season. I won't start with Bobby because he's not ready. Tim, I'll start with you. What are your biggest concerns for the Mavericks this upcoming season?
Starting lineup, defense, just the idea that the starting five doesn't quite click or mesh in a way that is not so obviously a problem that maybe Kid has a hard time going away from it, but it's also not quite maxing out the potential of the talent in the on this roster. And that is just going to be a very tricky thing to deal with if it comes to pass. Just, it's not, I think they've got to start the year like we expect them to start the year with the starting five, but it is something that is going to be tricky to navigate if the team's best 5-man lineups are just not the 5 that Dallas has kind of presumed they're going to start the year with.
Bobby, what's your biggest concern for the Mavericks this upcoming season?
My biggest concern is something that I actually also said at the end of the 2022 season, whenever the Mavs went to the conference finals. And unfortunately, it came out to be a little bit true because that season, every single player on the team basically careered. Like, every player had the best season of their career.
I like careered as a verb.
It's a good one.
Careered.
Yeah,
like
good.
Last season, Luka career high 38.2% from 3. Let me run down the Mavs roster real quick. PJ Washington obviously was very good. Kyrie Irving went 50, 40, 90. Derek Lively was great. Daniel Gafford was great. Like, a lot of guys played really well, and then into the playoffs, they played even better. What happens if there's just a little drop off? It's kind of like you make it that far, and then now you're all the way back at the foot of the mountain just with everybody else, and it's going to take a lot of work to climb the mountain again. And the only reason you were able to progress that far is because everybody was locked in. Everybody was great. And, kind of what I said about the team's identity is that they have that on-off switch. Like, that needs to be on all year. Last season was great. This season needs to be better. And Kyrie is a little older, and you got Klay, who's a little older, and you have a couple guys that had the best statistical seasons of their careers. Can they repeat that? Can they improve upon that? Can Derek Lively take a step forward? Like, the great thing and the beauty of last season is that everybody was awesome. The challenge is, can everybody be just as awesome again?
From Jacob, upcoming concern, PJ getting hurt and not having a proper 4 in terms of the starting lineup. So speaking to some of Tim's concerns from Leonardo, I'm worried about there not being enough minutes to go around to start the season. We know how deep the Mavericks are this upcoming year. And one that I'll voice in terms of a concern, and Tim started to allude to it a little bit for me, we put all of our baskets in the eggs in the basket of the idea that Klay Thompson is going to come in and really be able to turn the shooting around, help turn the shooting around from what we didn't see in the NBA Finals last year. My concern being Klay Thompson now in his mid-30s, moving toward the later 30s, how much more physically does he have left? We know that he's overcome an ACL. He's overcome an Achilles injury. How much more physically will his body be able to hold up to have the kind of impact that the Mavericks are desiring to have? That would be my biggest concern is, what if it doesn't work out with Klay Thompson after all the maneuvering that they did to make this happen? Not because Klay Thompson can't play, but because his body simply won't be able to hold up the way that the Mavericks will need him to help them out this year.
I guess it depends on what you're hoping for or expecting from the investment in Klay, right? Like, I think, this is no slight at a guy that we'll talk about later, but I think if like Hardaway is your baseline example of like, man, this is what just a really nice 3-point specialist would look like in the Mavs offense. I think that it's likely that the worst case scenario for a Klay season is on par with Tim's better days in Dallas. 15 points, pretty good efficiency. I would say that's probably like the floor and maybe like the realistic low end of Klay's statistical profile and kind of impact on things. Anything better than that is a strict improvement. I guess if you're expecting Klay to be Hall of Fame caliber and 20 points a game or 22 points a game or go off for 40 or 50 every now and then you might be a little disappointed. Maybe, but I think the good thing about this team is that they don't need a third guy to average 20.
Agreed.
As long as everything else works.
Yeah.
Now, if Kyrie goes down and Klay is struggling, or if Luka takes a little while to get going and Klay is struggling, then you're going to feel it quite a bit.
Because my thought would be, if I'm an opposing team and I'm looking at Klay Thompson on the defensive end, I'm coming to attack him night in and night out. I'm coming to see how are you going to hold up 20, 25, 30 minutes, however long he's going. I'm offensively attacking Klay Thompson to see if that body's going to be holding. Because the more you can wear him out on the defensive end, theoretically, he's going to be less impactful on the offensive end because we're talking about a guy that's had that amount of wear and tear on his body over the years, and see if that can hold up for him.
If you want a real concern, that's 3 potential targets on the floor for the defense to attack.
Yes.
You never want more than 1. You definitely can't have more than 2.
Yeah.
So for every single minute that those three guys play together, at least one of them is going to have to lock it the F in on defense.
Yeah, and it's like, so you think about it. The team's very first game is against Memphis. The preseason game. Very first preseason game. First time they step on the court in an NBA opponent. Now, in all likelihood, it's the first preseason game. It won't be the actual starting five. Somebody will rest. Maybe Klay won't play that game. Maybe Luka or Kyrie won't. In fact, I think there's a good chance Kyrie probably misses the first couple games of preseason. Just speculating based off, him having offseason surgery, even if he's, more or less healthy at this point. But Memphis is the exact type of team where it's like, who's going to guard John Morant?
Yeah.
It's not going to be PJ.
And Desmond Bane.
Yeah,
and Desmond Bane.
Yeah. In fact, yeah, it's exactly that. You've got one guy who runs around off screens, not what PJ is ideal at. And you've got one guy who has just a blindingly quick first step, not what PJ is ideal at. Probably end up putting PJ on Desmond Bane anyway, but
then who's on
John Morant?
Well, it's got to be Kyrie.
Who's on Jaren Jackson?
It's got to be Kyrie. It's going to be Kyrie.
And
or maybe Klay Thompson's on Desmond Bane and Kyrie's on Ja. But again, that is Kyrie Irving guarding the best player on the best team, right across from you from the first minute.
Yeah,
which is not what I want. Ideally, I don't want that.
He can do it. And
those guys are only going to play for like the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game together.
Yeah.
But you could still fall behind 14-8 in the first 4 or 5 minutes instead of winning or instead of tying or instead of anything, and like the first 5-6 minutes of a game, generally you're not going to remember at the end of a game. But if it gets to be game 20 or 25 of the season and the Mavs are routinely spotting the other team 4 or 5 points and they're also routinely losing games by 3 or 4 points, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
You are going to feel it. I don't think that's going to happen because I think they're going to score so much it won't even matter. But better make your threes.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier because it's very true, especially in the Western Conference this year, is you cannot get off to a slow start this year. My concern would be getting off to a slow start. We know about the schedule that they have in those first 7-8 games. You've got to be able to come out the gates fairly quickly because in a deep West this year, if you're finding yourself falling 3, 4, or 5 games behind, there's no picnic in the West this year. So you've got to be able to be on top of your A game from the very beginning because otherwise you could find yourself digging a hole that you may not be able to dig out of or spending so much energy that by the time you get to the end of the year, you're not going to have enough left to even have the kind of run you want to going into the postseason. So some different things that we discussed in terms of the concerns for the Mavericks. Hopefully those will be alleviated as we get through the course of the rest of the regular season. Coming up here in just a moment, we'll dial up the Stein line as our guy Marc Stein drops his news and notes, including some major updates on Luka Doncic and what the Mavericks will be doing in training camp this upcoming year as well. But before we get there, let me talk to you a little bit about Rowback. Quite simple. Best fit, best feel. The quality of the gear just speaks for itself. The performance polos, performance hoodies, and everyday shorts. Their performance polos perform better in the heat than any other polos with moisture wicking so the polo doesn't stick to you, and it has a nice stretch as well. With fall right around the corner, what better item to prepare for the season than adding one of their performance hoodies to your closet as well? They're the softest items that Rowback owns, and you won't want to take them off even now in the Dallas heat. Also, everyday shorts as well, incredibly versatile. You can wear them with a polo untucked or a tee on the move. They have an elastic waistband for easy comfort and nice stretch fabric as well. Clean look no matter the occasion. So if you're ready to get on the golf course, get yourself some Rowback gear. Use the code DLLS20 on rowback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all polos, hoodies, and shorts with code DLLS20. Make sure you check them out, and they will have you ready for whatever travels or activities that you are ready to go on. Shout out to Rowback.
And if you're out here buying a Rowback polo, it's going to make you want to get out to the golf course, I would imagine. I don't know. Maybe I've never played golf.
Rowback activewear is really good.
Yeah, it's going to inspire you to get out into the sun where you need some shady rays to keep your eyes safe. You got to get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of styles and options to choose from. You're bound to find the perfect pair that matches your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. What's better than that? Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code DLLS for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. There we go.
Oh, I did order myself a pair of Shady Rays, and the next time, as soon as I get those shades in the mail, right, the next time that we broadcast in the studio, I'm absolutely going to wear them because these lights, they're bright.
These
lights are kind of bright.
They are bright. They want us to see our shine.
But also, we got the sun reflecting off the windows, in the world behind us.
It's one of those things where the lights don't bother me until I remember they exist. It's kind of like when you start thinking about breathing, and then you have to like actually think through breathing, or you start looking at a word for too long, and you're just looking at it and you're looking at it, and it suddenly looks weird. That's what these lights are to me. As soon as I remember they're up here, I'm just like, oh my god, they're
like blinding.
Stop reminding me.
EIGHTH that's not a word.
Okay, now I'm reminding myself to breathe.
Word.
All right. Coming up here in just a moment, we'll dial up the Stein line, and a little bit later on, why Bobby will need a pair of Shady Rays because he's ready to fire this former Maverick into the sun. We'll let you know why a little bit later on. But right now, we dial up the Stein lines. Our guy Marc Stein joins us to drop some news and notes, including some major updates on Luka Doncic and what the Mavericks are going to be doing in training camp. What's going on, Mark? It's time to dial up the Stein line here on DLLS Mavs as we welcome in our national and Mavericks NBA insider. You can find him on Twitter at the Stein line. Our guy Marc Stein joining us here on DLLS Mavs. Mark, what's going on?
You guys thought I left you for good, but that was false. That was false chatter. I know I've been hard to find the last couple days. Traveling with my son is. My son is a young adult. He wants to see the world. He has me on the move, K. Gray, and I am too old to be jumping city to city to city like this young man wants to. But I'm great. Look, we've had an amazing time. But like I said, I apologize to my guys, to you and the squad, for being a little bit harder to pin down this week than last week. But we have succeeded. We're only in Madrid for a couple more hours, but we figured out a way to do this before we head back to London and then back home. Before you know it, I will be back in the lounge with you guys, and then by like Wednesday, you'll be like, Stein, take a vacation. We're sick of this guy.
Well, we're excited to get you back, and you led me right into it. In Madrid, you've had a chance to travel the world throughout the course of this summer and a little bit now into the fall as you get ready for this NBA season. Have you had a chance to be able to relax and recuperate as you get ready for another long NBA season here?
I mean, yes and no. Again, like I said, my oldest, I have 2 boys who are, they're basically adults now, which that's a whole nother pod. My struggles to deal with how fast they grew up, that's a whole nother show. But like I said, my oldest, he wants to see the world, and we've seen a lot. London, Vienna, now Madrid. I sneaked to Manchester twice for 2 city games. So yes, I have been very, very spoiled. Off the charts food all over the place. Lots of soccer. Tuesday night, shortly a few hours after we landed here, got to go to the Bernabeu, which has, of course, been remodeled and updated. I had been there a few times before. But, I was here last October with the Mavs when I did not go to Abu Dhabi, but I did join the Mavs in Madrid. But there was no time on that trip for any soccer, just seeing Luka coming back to Spain.
Yeah.
The Spanish in Madrid, they really regard him as one of their own. Of course, Luka is the proudest Slovenian you could ever find. We know how much it means to him to represent a country in an international basketball and, being home. And he loves kind of being a world ambassador for Slovenia. But he spent so long in Madrid as a Real Madrid player, basically from the age of 13 until he became a Mav. So here in Madrid, Luka is regarded as one of their own. And last year's trip, there was, like I said, there wasn't a second for soccer because Luka coming back, even though he could barely play in that exhibition because of the injury he picked up in practice, it was just such a brutal thing. I mean, he was he basically limped out there for a few minutes, and the Mavericks were so nervous during that whole experience because they did not want him to play. But obviously the game wouldn't have even been scheduled if it was not for Luka to make this big homecoming at Real Madrid. So last October, 100% basketball. This late September with my son, it's been a footy and food fest for the last 48 hours. So but it is time to go back to the real world, man. The season has started.
Yes, it has.
I love this week, even the week before media day. I love it. Like, the season is here. So let's get to work. The season is here.
And speaking of getting to work, the Mavericks get ready to open up training camp next week. They'll have media day on September 30th in Dallas before they travel to Las Vegas to begin their preparations for this upcoming season. And Mark, one of the more anticipated watches of this season is, of course, the aforementioned Luka Doncic, coming off an NBA Finals appearance for the very first time, finishing top 3 in the MVP voting, won the scoring title last year. The accolades go on and on and on for what this player has become in this league. And now he has a chance for the very first time defend the Western Conference Championship to try to get this team back to the NBA Finals. It's been a busy summer for Luka, but hopefully some rest and relaxation. What do we know about what Luka has been up to, but more importantly, as we get ready for this season, how he has prepared and got himself ready for another training camp and another season here starting soon?
You know, Kev, honestly, I would say I think his training camp has already begun. And we talked about this late last month when I was in Slovenia. He played in the Goran Dragic retirement, the farewell game, and then he had to go to China right after that. But I think when we talked then, we talked about how Luka was going to be ramping things up, and he really did. I mean, he has been practicing often recently with Illyria, which is a team in Slovenia. His father, Sasha, is the GM. It's a team mostly filled with young players, so it's kind of looked at as a developmental team. But Luka's been practicing with them a lot. So he hasn't just been doing workouts. I mean, he's been going through some full practice sessions already. And I think you've seen on social media that, you know, there have been some pictures of Luka in recent weeks, and, you know, he definitely looks like he's ready to go. So I think he's kind of gotten a little bit of a jump here on training camp, and, you know, he'll be back in Dallas very, very soon. I know we're taping this early in the morning on Thursday. You guys are doing the show later this afternoon. And so, you know, it would not surprise me if we get a signal that Luka is back in the Dallas atmosphere very, very soon. I mean, obviously he has to be, because Monday's media day, the team jumps right on a plane to go to Las Vegas on Monday night. And again, remember the schedule for this training camp. You know, they have such a deep team. I think they're looking at this and going into this with the mindset that it's going to be a pretty intense training camp. Jason Kidd, it's my understanding he is scheduled 2-a-days for the first 2 days. So Tuesday, October 1st, Wednesday, October 2nd, 2-a-days, both days for sure. So right off the bat, 4 practices for the Mavs those first 2 days. They will get an off day on October 3rd. That will be a day for team bonding, and that obviously will not be something that the media will be privy to. So they'll have a day to kind of hang out and get some bonding time. And then they have one more practice day in Vegas before they come back to Dallas. And then, of course, they'll be in the gym for their open practice. I think is that October 6th, the Sunday, if I got my days right. So, you know, they'll have at least 5 practices, maybe 6 in Vegas, 5 or 6 for sure. But like I said, I think it's interesting that, you know, Luka has basically already been on the practice floor this month. And I think that kind of tells you how he's approaching this season. Last season was a Cinderella ride for the Mavs to get to the NBA Finals. They mowed through 3 50-win teams to win the West. No small feat, but they didn't win it all. And so this is a team that's coming back still with a lot to prove, and, you know, just getting out of the West. You know, they don't give you, I mean, I guess they do give you a conference championship trophy for that, but
yes,
it's not like anybody regards that as a championship. But, you know, just winning your conference, it is something significant. And it will not be easy for the Mavs to repeat that feat. Let's be honest. So I think Luka Doncic understands that, and he's gonna be on that practice floor Tuesday morning in Vegas, ready to go.
It's interesting you bring that up because Mark Cuban was on with Shannon Sharp on his Club Shay Shay podcast. He was talking about the approach that Dirk took in that 07 year and what he did in terms of changing his diet, the intensity that he came into that season with to try and get the Mavericks back to the NBA Finals. We know how that season ended, unfortunately. But, Mark, it sounds like in some ways Luka is taking that type of approach, already getting back on the basketball court in terms of the practice, the workouts, and the intensity. And it sounds like Jason Kidd and this team are embracing that grind and that intensity with opening up with two-a-days. It feels like this is a very serious time for them, and they realize what kind of moment an opportunity that they have that's in front of them, given the changes that they've made for this team this upcoming year.
Yeah, I listened to the Cuban podcast. I would say, I think if you really look back at that 06, 07 and losing in the first round changed Dirk as much as anything. Certainly 06 was devastating, but in some ways 07 was even worse. So I think you got to add those two seasons together, those two playoff eliminations. And yes, there's no question. Also remember, Dirk was much later in his career when he experienced that, or maybe much later is the wrong word, but at least a little bit later. But then on the flip, I can't believe that Luka's entering his 7th season. Yeah. It's yes. Like when you think about Luka, you still think of him as a younger player, but like, how is it possible that this is already year 7 for this guy? But yeah, look, I think the Mavs are under no illusion that, they think they improved in the offseason. They think they got deeper. They think that they've addressed their shortage of shooting by bringing in Klay Thompson. But I have to say, around the league, there are still skeptics that it's not unanimous among people, among observers, among neutral observers in and out of Dallas, who just are convinced that the Mavericks have taken a clear step forward. And I don't know that there are clear steps forward in this miserably brutal Western Conference. We talk so much about, we've had 6 different champions in 6 seasons, which hasn't happened since the late 70s. And the question is frequently posed, can the Celtics repeat? Can the Celtics win 2 in a row before the reality of modern NBA finances forces them to start breaking up that team? Because we know the Celtics are not going to be able to keep that team together for 5 years. It's just going to be way too expensive to do that. But I think the question closer to home is, can the Mavericks just repeat as Western Conference champions? How hard it is to get out of the West 2 years in a row. I know you get it. It is.
Yeah, it's tough.
Just to get back to the finals would be a significant achievement. And of course, if you get to the finals and don't win, nobody looks at it that way. You get, you get crushed for not winning at all. So yeah, it's the grind starts immediately. And my instinct is, that's the kind of tone that Jason Kidd is going to try to set in training camp. On one hand, when a team has gone so far, that's always one of the challenges when a team has made a deep playoff run. Creating urgency in October is not easy. But, this Mavericks team has not gotten off to great starts in the last few seasons. It would really help them. It would really make Bobby Corrala's life a lot better if they could
for sure
get off to a good start. So we'll see. We'll see, can Jason Kidd manufacture a tone of urgency? You saw Boston has already had its media day this week because the Celtics and the Nuggets, the teams that have won the last 2 titles, they're going to Abu Dhabi this season. They're the 2 teams that are starting the season with exhibition games abroad. So the Celtics had their media day on Tuesday. Denver's media day is today. And then those teams will leave pretty soon for Abu Dhabi in this long haul trip that they have to make. You hear Joe Mazzulla, he's trying to create urgency. And I'm sure you saw that anecdote where I can't remember exactly who reported it. My apologies to who exactly had it. It might have been my former teammate, Ramona Shelburne. I'm not totally sure who had this. I saw it somewhere on Twitter that Porzingis got back in the gym in Boston, runs into Joe Mazzulla, and Mazzulla says, so should we have an easy camp or a hard camp? And Porzingis said something to the effect of somewhere in the middle, and Mazzulla was like, no way! This camp needs to be as hard as we can make it. So that's, you see these coaches, they're trying to manufacture some October urgency.
Yes, and that urgency is already here, as you mentioned, with the Nuggets and the Celtics going to be kicking things off overseas, just like the Mavericks did last year, which means there's a lot of things starting to happen. We've seen the announcement of Derrick Rose retiring after 15 seasons, and now he's moving on in terms of the next portion of his life and his career. What else is happening around the league, Mark, that's got your interest peaked as we get ready for not only training camp for the rest of the league, but moving toward the beginning of October when we get ready for preseason games as well?
Yeah, Kev, honestly, I think this is one of the more underrated weeks on the NBA calendar. And again, maybe it's just because I'm so nerdy about this stuff. And I love seeing these teams that roll out their coach and or GM before media day even gets here. Just the quotes start flooding into the ether. And, again, on this third, we had Lawrence Frank earlier in the week talking about how Kawhi Leonard, who could only play 2 games in that first round series against the Mavs, 5 months later, still dealing with right knee issues. I mean, that's a major development that we learned this week. And yes. Sam Presti did a press availability in Oklahoma City today. Again, the Denver Nuggets, all of them, not just Coach Michael Malone, but all the players, they'll be speaking for the first time since we've seen them, since that crazy Minnesota series that went 7 games. Mike Dunleavy and Steve Kerr, they're doing media today as well in the Bay Area as to set up the Warrior season. But it's interesting, Sam Presti always comes out with a few quotes that always make headlines. What did he say? Something like social media is a sport, but scrolling is a lifestyle. Something like, so that got, then he said something else about how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and how the Thunder have stressed to him that, you can't just be a guy who comes in and cooks at one end. They're really stressing to him to try to expand his game, become more of a two-way player, which is certainly an interesting challenge to hear for the face of the franchise. But he also at length spoke yesterday about how the Thunder's ascension and development as a team, as a really young team, has been accelerated just by being in this Western Conference, this brutally stacked Western Conference. And, he said basically the West sharpens you in a unique way because of the depth of the conference. And again, it's just, I think you're going to hear a lot of that from key representatives from a lot of teams talking about just like what it's like to deal with this brutal conference. And again, yes, the Mavs lost in the finals, but you can't diminish the achievement of getting out of the West and beating those 350-win teams that they had to just to get to the title round.
Tremendous stuff, Mark. It feels like we are just right around the corner from NBA basketball media days. Obviously, these players are ready to get back onto the floor. But most importantly, the Mavericks ready to get on the court to defend their Western Conference championship. Looking forward to seeing the intensity that these practices are going to be bringing, but also for these players to have an opportunity to speak on their summer and their experiences that they've had throughout the course of this year, coming off a finals appearance, but also hearing from guys like Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, and others who are excited to join this team to help the Mavericks try to not only get back to the NBA Finals, but this time win it. It will be a difficult task in what is going to be a tremendous Western Conference all season long. Mark, as always, good to see you. Appreciate the time and looking forward to talk to you on Friday before you head back stateside with us here to get ready for this season, my man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sources say we're going to try to do this live one time before I come home.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. It's always, I've said it about 7 times. We've now recorded segments in Slovenia, London, Madrid. I think we did Vienna too, didn't we?
That's right.
We've recorded segments in from all these far-flung places. But tomorrow on Friday's show, we're going to try to do it live. So it's all 4 of us together again. And then I promise next week, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to reveal it now. But we got we are going to be starting strong when camp starts. We got a couple fun surprises that we're working on here at DLLS. So stay tuned for those. I think next week you're going to really enjoy the kind of stuff we have planned.
He's our National and Mavericks NBA insider. You can find him on Twitter at the Stein Line. Dialing up the Stein Line here on DLLS Mavs. Our guy Marc Stein, good enough to join us here overseas once again here on DLLS Mavs. Mark, as always, appreciate the time, my man. We look forward to seeing you here soon.
All right, talk to you tomorrow. Be good.
Shout out to our guy Marc Stein, dropping his news and notes. Some really good stuff when it comes to the Mavericks. Going to be opening up with 2-a-days at training camp when they get into Las Vegas. Also, Luka Doncic is putting in work already to get ready for this upcoming season. Mark going to be joining us live tomorrow for our show here on DLLS Mavs, so you don't want to miss that. Coming up next, why Bobby wants to fire this former Maverick up into the sun. But other than that,
so harsh.
Yeah, well, that's the way you felt about it during our pre-show meeting. Then we'll go around the Mavs here in just a moment. But before we get there, let me talk to you about Rugged Road. We're going to need you to cool off a little bit with a Rugged Road cooler after you get fired up into the sun, Mr. Hardaway. Never mind. Here in just a minute.
I'm the anti-sun firing for the record.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, you might not want to stick around for this next segment.
Well, it's more just like I think the resources to get someone all the way to the sun is just kind of a waste of resources.
Well, take a Rugged Road cooler on your way up to the sun, will you? Definitely use Rugged Road coolers.
Keep your drinks cool.
That's right. Exactly. Because Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand our best, even if you're trying to get fired up into the sun, apparently, according to Tim Cato. Our products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring they perform in the toughest conditions, whether you're on land or water. Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. Crafted to handle the toughest environments, their coolers are built to last, ensuring they keep up with any adventure. Their coolers are guaranteed to keep their contents cool for up to 7 days or even longer than that. Perfect for a variety of activities, from fishing to tuba to camping to tailgating. These coolers are designed to meet the needs of every outdoor and sports enthusiast. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use code DLLS for 10% off today.
With Empire Today, you get shop and home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a low price guarantee.
Today.
They keep shopping for floors simple with the curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and a million substitutes. What they leave out of their selection is just as important as what they put in. Their product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles for you. And you can shop for your floors from where you use them. With their virtual, it's not yours, but it can be yours. With their virtual floor designer, you can just point your phone at the floor, boom, take a picture. Just like that, you can see what your new floor will look like. Just like that, you can see what your new studio will look like. Just like that, you can see what your new kitchen, boom, 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 boom. It's so quick and so easy, and they service their own warranties too. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use promo code DLLS. Restrictions may apply. See empiretoday.com/DLLS for details. Save yourself $350.
Let's go around the Mavs here on DLLS Mavs. Some guys making some noise when their former sons used to play for this team. Also, Mark Cuban hopping on Club Shay Shay to talk about the Illuminati, cognac, and everything else. Yeah, including the Mavericks as well.
My.
Yeah, he talked about a lot of stuff for an hour and a half with Shannon Sharpe. In fact, that's where we'll start, Tanner, as Mark Cuban, minority governor of your Dallas Mavericks, hopped on Shannon Sharpe's podcast to talk about a variety of things, including Mark Cuban talking about how Klay Thompson became a Dallas Maverick, thanking these three individuals for why Klay Thompson is here in Dallas.
This offseason was Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got Luka. We know what Luka is. You have Kyrie, a guy that can make big shots, tremendous handles. How were you able to convince Klay to come to Dallas when his dad wanted him to go to L.A.? He grew up as a Lakers fan. Kobe was his idol. How did you convince him join us in Dallas?
I mean, credit goes to Nico and Kyrie, NJ Kidd, right? They know him, they've played with him, they understand him, and that's literally why we brought Nico Harrison in, because of his relationships with players.
Okay.
And so they went out and spent time with him, got to know him better, and really, and I think Klay was ready for a move, right? You know, all the grief he got last year, particularly the way it ended. So the timing was right. And, kudos to Klay for being willing to make the move, and kudos to Nico, J. Kidd, and Kai for making it happen.
So Cuban crediting Jason Kidd, also Nico Harrison, and of course Kyrie Irving for recruiting Klay Thompson here to Dallas. Not dissimilar to what we've heard throughout the course of this offseason with the reporting that's been done on Klay Thompson coming to Dallas. But again, it just underscores the all-in effort to bring in the 4-time NBA champion here to Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, like 10 years ago, it was Mark Cuban in a nightclub with Chandler Parsons bringing that deal home. And then the next summer, it was Cuban and Parsons in L.A., partying with Wes Matthews and DeAndre Jordan, trying to
get out of the street, Parsons.
Yeah, so it's just a different kind of environment around here now. It's a much more collective approach and much less just kind of one dude or maybe two dudes. It's like a whole unified thing. I mean, think back to like 2012, they were going after Darren Williams, and I think like Cuban was filming an episode of Shark Tank instead of being at the meeting or whatever. Like it always felt like there was just weird stuff going on, and now it's very unified and very well put together. And the Mavs seem to be reaping the benefits of that so far.
Yeah, I think that's all true. I mean, I think even
and that's no slight to Cuban. I mean, it's just a different era.
Yeah, it's the culture of this team. It's just very different, and I think you talk to any employee within the team, and I do talk to a lot of them, they've seen changes, they've seen differences, they've seen things that are, different in 2024 than they were even in 2022. And it's like in 2022, it wasn't really fathomable to me, to most people around the team that Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson, that they would choose this as a destination. And some of that is, the ownership change is you're starting to see some effects of that, but this has been ongoing since Nico took charge, and really about a year in. A year in is when I think Nico's influence was really starting to be seen, and he's made this much more like a major corporation, and in some ways streamlined. In some ways, I would argue that there are probably some flaws to this team in the same way that major corporations, don't function perfectly either. They, maybe they function too slowly or with too much bureaucracy, but, it's a very different changing organization. And Mark he would be the one to see this.
Sure.
Because he was the one who, conducted this team in a very different way and allowed this team to be conducted in a very different way with the people that he entrusted into positions of power, for 2 decades of his tenure, 2+ decades.
It's kind of like moving from like mom and pop little small business to like a proper corporation.
Yeah.
It's kind of the evolution that has been happening.
Yeah. Like, of course, Nico Harrison coming over from Nike, bringing that structure with him over to the Dallas Mavericks has paid off seriously with the amount of guys that they have been able to bring in. Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, the relationships that he has built over the years, paying off for the Dallas Mavericks. Speaking of relationships, Tim Hardaway Sr. protecting his son at all costs, maybe to the detriment of his own son's time being remembered here in Dallas. Why, I'm going to let Bobby here in just a second.
He's going to shoot his son into the sun?
Fire Tim Hardaway Sr. into the sun. But first, before that,
son
check
on
out
son violence.
Promise and over-deliver.
No,
son
you're
on
going to deliver on this.
Oh, my goodness.
But before we get there,
why do
check
sons
out
do it to their own community?
and listen to Tim Hardaway Sr., who appeared on the All the Smoke podcast, talking about how he felt about his son playing and or not playing in the NBA Finals. Take a listen and watch.
Your family almost got a ring last season.
Yes.
He went from someone they paid that was playing a lot and then all of a sudden just wasn't playing no more. What was it like trying to just keep his mental into it? And what were those conversations like during that time where he should have been out there and just wasn't?
As a pops, it's tough knowing that your son's supposed to be out there. He knowing that he can help the team win. But for some reason, Jason Kidd, Nico are not telling nobody what's the deal. And that's the hard part. I played with you on the 2000 Olympic team. We got gold together. We all in this fraternity together. And you don't have the dignity to go to my son and just say, hey, this XYZ, this is why I'm not playing. So when they was talking about my son not playing and he coming in, not shooting the ball, well, first of all, you got to get the ball. It's all up to Luka because Luka running the whole show there.
Right.
I was there talking to him. I was there consoling him. I was there just like a father's supposed to be and making him understand it's going to be all right. It's better days to come.
Woo! Tim Hardaway Sr. got a lot to say got the Mavericks still in his mouth while his son Tim Hardaway Jr. is now back at home in Detroit, Michigan, about to play for the Detroit Pistons. Bobby Karalla, you have the floor, sir.
Oh my God. I'm not going to don't play the ether track or anything
I definitely want the ether track.
It's not going to be that serious what's going to happen, but it's just the video had a little hypocrisy in it, Kevin. That was my big issue with
Say it with your chest, Karalla. Say it with your chest, damn it.
So, Tim Sr. is saying, hey, J-Kid, you and I were on the Olympics together. We're both NBA players. We're part of this fraternity. And that is absolutely true. Excuse me. If you played in the NBA, you are part of this club, this very exclusive and small club where you understand the way that things work in the NBA better than anybody on the outside can. And that includes people that are very well connected, people that go to game, people that are around the team, people like us, whatever. Those guys know the real scoop, right? They know what's really happening behind closed doors in the locker room. And kind of the extension of being part of that fraternity is that you keep a lot of that stuff in-house, right? So why then, Tim Sr., are you airing out the dirty laundry about, your son and his relationship with the coach and his relationship with the GM and his relationship with the superstar publicly for multiple years?
Get him, Bobby.
This is not a new thing. This isn't the first interview he's done. Aren't you and Luka part of the same fraternity?
Get him, Bobby.
Aren't you and Tim Hardaway Jr. part of the same fraternity? But
you remember when he said something, Tim Hardaway Sr. went on a podcast and said something, and instantly Tim Hardaway Jr. was like, oh, I disavow all of those comments. They didn't come from me. And the reason he did it so quickly was because they absolutely came from him. And that's why Sr. was projecting them.
Yeah, 100%. So why are you sowing discord in the ranks? Why are you airing all that stuff? Why can't you keep it between the player and the coach or the players in the locker room? All the things that you would have appreciated whenever you were a player in the NBA. But one theme, unfortunately, with Tim Sr. is that he just was unable to not complain about Tim Jr.'s playing time. To which, let me just say, okay, Tim Hardaway Jr. at moments was a very impactful Maverick. His willingness to shoot the ball, his ability to want to shoot whenever he's open, was extremely valuable. How often do we talk about how guys that have shaky confidence, that are reluctant, that kind of stuff hurts your offense?
That wasn't the problem with Tim Hardaway Jr.
Never.
And hey,
never a problem.
For better or worse.
Zach Crane once wrote, the great late Zach Crane, he said Tim Hardaway Jr. could get his shot off in a fully loaded Kia Sorento.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And look, if that's
a great line.
If that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're gonna do. That's his identity as a player. I think every player is special. I think every player is good. I thought it was awesome watching Tim go off whenever he would go Nova. Was incredible. It was so much fun to watch him play. But
he gave us one more glimpse of that in the finals when the Mavericks were blowing out the Celtics.
Yeah, when other players on the team built a 40-point lead so that Tim could play in the fourth quarter. That's exactly right. But if you're gonna if your identity is a streaky shooter, a microwave guy, and sometimes it comes unplugged, if you don't have it going, you have to be okay with not playing. You can't be the only player on the roster that gets to play whenever you're playing like crap. That just is not whenever you're shooting like crap, and other guys on the team maybe are not as effective scorers as Tim was, but they were better defenders, or maybe they were taller, or maybe they were able to guard guys better to fit with the personnel on the floor. There's myriad reasons why guys would or would not play in Dallas, especially under Kidd. And one common theme you hear from literally every other player that's come here over the last 3 years of the Kidd era is that he does tell them why he does or doesn't play them. So I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think it's tone deaf. I think it's really unprofessional.
Woo!
I think it violates all of the things that you're accusing J-Kid of violating. It's just very hypocritical. And frankly, I just don't care. I'm glad that that guy is not going to watch Mavs games anymore. I'm glad I don't have to hear about him. I'm glad I don't have to hear about it. I don't have to
Say
watch
it with
Tim
your chest,
Jr.
Karalla. Damn.
It's just over. I'm glad it's over. Thank God.
I'm going to paraphrase a very good popular
I'm about to walk
tweet.
off the set because that was
this is a paraphrasing.
It wasn't that good, right? It wasn't that good, was it?
That was pretty good. It was pretty good.
No, that was a pretty damn good rant, Bobby.
But
that was pretty good.
But to paraphrase one of the better tweets that's ever been out there, I do not support all Tims. Some of y'all are very dumb.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah. So from January 31st to the end of the regular season, Tim Hardaway Jr. shot 32.2% on threes, 35.5% on twos, or just on field goals, but still not very good. He was not a good offensive player. He was a very good offensive player for the first half of the year, and he was not a very good one for the second half of the offensive year.
Dude, he was, and that's important to say.
Yeah.
Whenever
Put that comment up, Tanner.
Whenever Kyrie was out,
Yeah.
Tim was so important to this team in the first half of the season. He was so important to the team. And he was so good in that Clippers series in 2021. Like, he had such good moments as a Mav.
Yeah.
It was so much fun to watch him play. Like, even the bad nights was still, like, entertainment. You know, because, like, what is he going to do next? You just never know, you know? And he had a 40-point game against the Pelicans whenever Luka was out, and everybody thought they were going to lose.
Him and Kyrie went off that day.
Yeah, he was really good in so many times whenever he needed to step up. But whenever everybody was healthy, he just sometimes didn't fit in. It's just like, dude, you have to be able to fit in. You have to be able to fit in. You cannot be a high maintenance role player. You just can't do it, you know.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is Around the Mavs here on DLLS Mavs with the firing into the sun by Bobby Karalla and Tim Cato. When it comes to Tim Hardaway Sr., make sure you're liking and commenting on the video here on DLLS Sports. Y'all went long. Bobby went out and started preaching.
Well, we're behind a little bit, but I'll shout out. I'll shout out the
Bobby
diehards
was cooking.
I'll shout out the diehards real quick.
Go ahead.
alldlls.com/diehard. You can sign up, become a diehard today. It's going to cost you less than $7 a month. It costs the same as a cup of coffee from your local coffee conglomerate. With just that one little payment per month, you gain access to our entire website, all the written content that we got from all 4 sports teams in town right now. Plus, we got more coming down the pipeline that you're going to want to read about as well. You get discounts on merch. You get a free shirt when you sign up. You get discount on future events. You get to join the Discord, where I'm going to be putting all my thoughts about the games this season.
And apparently Tim Hardaway Sr.
I don't know if Tim Sr. is going to want to become a diehard after this, but if it inspired you to, then feel free to hop on. It's a great time to become a diehard of your Dallas sports teams, because most of them are doing well, except for the team that's playing tonight.
That's a great point, actually. That's an excellent point, Bobby. Yes, alldlls.com/diehard. You get a physical diehard card as well. 20% off events, incredible premium content on our website as well. Fantastic merchandise, Skyline t-shirts, all kinds of great stuff when you become a diehard member here at alldlls.com/diehard. From Fred, he says that is the best rant since Brian Damaris went off on James Harden.
I'm not trying to be explosive.
Don't walk it back, Bobby. Own it. Own it.
The theme, I hope the theme is the one that shines through, like the correct one, which is just, if you're going to complain, like, you cannot accuse somebody of not being a good pro and a good member of the fraternity and then turn around and be that person yourself. You know, is the person that's violating the code of player sanctity like in the room with us? You know, like, you can't be that guy. Leave that in-house. Don't be messy. Just don't be messy.
Jason Kidd extended a rotation leash to Tim Hardaway Jr. so much longer than any of us watching this team thought he should have.
Jaden Hardy's been languishing on the bench for months.
Yes.
Like, they're the same guy. It's the same
We
picture.
thought Jaden Hardy was going to have a chance to cook because we thought Tim Hardaway was going to get moved off the team to allow that opportunity to happen.
The idea that Hardaway was not given biased treatment in terms of it was pro Hardaway bias.
He was on the leadership council. Now,
that's right. Yeah,
I want to be really, really fair and accurate, because we're unbiased here at DLLS Mavs,
or maybe slightly.
I was going to say DLLS Sports, but the Cowboy Show is very biased sometimes. Tim has been constantly told, and this goes back to Rick too, as when Carlisle was the coach. Rick and J Kidd were all the time putting him in the starting lineup and then bringing him off the bench and kind of moving him around, and you're not sure when you're going to get minutes and what is my role. And then the coach is very assuring and very, affirming, and is like, no, you're good, man. And then you open up, The Athletic or ESPN or Twitter or whatever, and you're like, oh, the Mavs are trying to trade Tim Hardaway Jr. So, like, I get that it was a very tumultuous. This time in Dallas was not without turbulence for much of it.
I was going to say the same thing, yeah.
I know it had to hurt Tim so bad in 2022 whenever he gets hurt and the Mavs go on this great playoff run, and, like, he can't be a part of it, and there's probably some sort of imposter syndrome. Like, is this a Ewing theory thing? Was I getting in the way? Are they better off without me? And, like, it was not easy. It was not easy, So I'm not just trying to say that guy sucks and everybody else is awesome. And like, J Kidd has been messy throughout his career and as a coach and as a player. Like, it's just a perfect storm of chaos. And it would have just been really sick if we never would have had to hear about any of it.
Yeah, I agree. I sympathize. He showed up to media day around this time a year ago and was like, I wasn't even sure I was going to be on the roster.
Yeah,
in fact,
he did say that out loud.
That might have been like literally 1 year ago today. It was roundabout then.
Yeah, and like it sucks. That sucks.
And that I can sympathize for. I don't think, I'm not really sure there's any team that Hardaway could have played for that he would have thought he was getting enough touches or that he was as
that is
involved
also
as he
probably
should be.
true, and that also sucks.
He gonna get plenty of them in Detroit though. That's for damn sure.
I don't think he will, dude.
They need bodies to play.
Like
they're not trying to win nothing in Detroit
like
right
no
now.
offense
Anyway,
to Cade Cunningham, but he is not the playmaker that Luka is. He's just not.
he'll get shots up though. They gave Tobias. They were begging Tobias Harris to come get this money from them.
And Tobias Harris will put up some shots.
That's
on
what I'm
you
saying.
too.
Like,
Jaden Ivey will put up some shots on you too. The
Tobias
Pistons
will put
have
up
a bunch
shots.
of guys are going to try and get buckets.
Yeah.
And, Tim is not going to be starting for them.
Ardell asks, how unified will this team be? No more me guys? The culture is solid?
I don't know.
That kind of bleeds into what we're talking about. And you're right. I think the answer is like, I don't know for sure.
And there's always guys that aren't going to be playing that feel like they should. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. is not the first. He won't be the last. Like if Spencer Dinwiddie's going to want more than 14 minutes. Luka's going to want more than 35. Like everybody wants more touches.
Jaden Hardy definitely wanted more minutes last season.
Hell, they're going to be trying to find guys minutes this year with all the talent that they've got. Yeah.
I do think that the culture is solid.
I would agree with that.
I don't think Hardaway soured the team's culture. That is not ever my impression of it. There was certainly some strife, especially 2 years ago when they were losing and when they had that catastrophic season. There was, just some bristling in the locker room. There were some sour feelings. I do not think that any player, I don't think Hardaway was out here actively harming the team's culture. That's not my understanding of what was going on back then.
Publicly on the floor, he's a good teammate, standing up, high-fiving guys.
But it's very clear he would. Nobody was confused that he was not totally pleased with everything. His role, his minutes, all this stuff. So that's something that's everybody has to work through every team has to, every locker room has to work through at some point. But I do think that the culture of this team is good and it's uplifted by good players.
It's one of those things where it's, usually you have the hierarchy is kind of implied, but J-Kid and Nico and Mark, all the powers that be in the organization are very clear that they will explicitly say this is Luka and Kyrie's team and it's on everybody else to fit in and everybody else has to buy in. And so it's kind of different whenever the organization is telling you if you're not named Luka or Kyrie, you're a role player. And if you're somebody like Tim, who's like, I think I'm like probably a little better than a role player, that might might ruffle your feathers. Yeah. Now we'll see with Klay, if like what we were talking about in the first segment, if it doesn't super work out well with Klay, how's that going to go?
Sure.
Because like Klay Thompson's not a role player, buddy. I'm Klay effing Thompson.
Right.
So like we'll see. Hopefully it won't be an issue at all. But like there is, it's complicated. It's always complicated.
So what's funny is this segment, we actually had a topic we were going to discuss. Everything ran a little bit late. We ended up talking more Hardaway than we expected.
I love the way this show went.
But fortunately, the topic we were going to discuss is the Mavericks offense fun to watch? The answer is yes. Topic is over, and now you can close the show.
We can save it for tomorrow. Tomorrow's only a day away.
Well,
we can talk
boys
about
and
tomorrow.
girls, that'll do it for us today here on DLLS
I just figured I'd answer it
Mavs.
real
The
quick.
Mavs offense will be fun to watch. And don't worry, Leonardo, we're going to alleviate your concerns about the idea that there's too many guys on this team going to be looking for Miz.
Are we? That's not my job. My job is to say that it's...
I was trying to reassure Leonardo, and you did not help at all in that matter just now. Don't worry, Leonardo.
I'm sorry, Leonardo.
Kevin got you, Leonardo.
The unfortunate truth is injuries are a thing, so there will always be minutes. Unfortunately, we cannot turn the injury button off, but that's...
That would be amazing to
cut you off while you're trying to land
I could do it
plane.
Easily.
Of course you could.
Yeah.
We'll be back tomorrow.
I'm too big of a fan of chaos.
At noon. I got to get this out of here. We got to go. We'll be back tomorrow at noon. Marc Stein going to be joining us live on the show tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time here on DLLS Sports for another episode of DLLS Mavs as we get you that much closer to Media Day and Mavericks training camp. For Bobby, Tim, I'm Kevin. We're DLLS Mavs. We'll touch you out tomorrow. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.